Well, I'm on an hour early today. Today is December 6th, 2024. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And I'm going to talk here for a couple minutes before I get into what's going on here. But I've been working a story for a few months now. And apparently the Salt Lake Tribune has been working on the same story too. And so I wanted to I've been sitting on this story for a while. I probably would have done something probably a couple months ago if it wasn't for the hurricanes and other things that kind of got in the way of me pursuing this story. Of course, my mom with her broken hip, 2 hurricanes. But before the hurricanes hit, I actually was talking to a few sources at BYU, and some actually kind of reached out to me about it. About there's some things going on that many of the faculty there are finding very disconcerting. About they don't feel like they can speak very openly about what's going on at the campus. So I wanted to talk about that. Cultural Hall says, "Hey, Stephen. Hey, Cultural Hall. Please stick around for this conversation. It's really interesting. I've been working on this story for a couple of weeks. I'm just going to wait for a few people to hop on. Also for people to get their notifications. They don't always come in when I go live. So I want to make sure that everybody is hearing this when I talk about it. And I want to just let people know that, again, this is a neutral space. I try to report the news. I don't try to do too much commentary. So tonight I'm just going to tell you what my sources have told me and share that with you. So not everything that my sources tell me do I necessarily agree with, but these are people that are good friends of mine, people that I trust and feel that they're people of integrity, and they're at BYU. I have also talked to people who are outside of the situation, and I've actually last week was working the story right before Thanksgiving and was given a couple names of some BYU professors who've since moved on to other institutions who've also I've been told, well, maybe they want to speak publicly, because right now no faculty wants to go public with this story, but this story is going to be an important one. Again, the Salt Lake Tribune, Peggy Fletcher Stack, has been interviewing some of the same people I have. And from my understanding, this story will be coming out. And so I felt like, since I've been working on this story, I kind of wanted to give you my perspective to let people know of what's going on. Okay, but I'm going to wait a little bit more. More and more people are dropping on, and I just want to give you guys a quick update. My mom is doing much better. She broke her hip, but the recovery is going really well. She had her stitches removed the other day, and I talked to her caseworker today, and I was told that they hope to have her released out of the rehab center by December 22nd, which actually was surprising. We thought we'd get her out sooner, and I actually think she'll get out sooner as well. So I just want to thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers. Also, I wanted to say that I talked with, out of the blue, got a phone call from Scott Gordon, who's the president of Fair Mormon. When I say out of the blue, actually, I heard from the vice president. He emailed me yesterday. I actually saw the email for the first time today. And they asked me to change the name of the title of one of my videos with Jonathan Neville, which I did, because even Jonathan brought up to me that it wasn't a really good title. And so I did. And then they said, well, we noticed also you're going to be talking with Carrie Schertz, the backyard professor, who is one of the founders of Fair Mormon. We just want to say that, the organization is a lot different than it was when he first started. And I said, granted, I can get that. And I said, why don't you guys give me a call? Well, next thing you know, out of the blue, I get a call, not from the vice president, but from the president of Fair Mormon, Scott Gordon. And I have to tell you, I had a great conversation with Scott. Pleasant guy. I kind of let him know why I've been sometimes critical of Fair Mormon at times. But I did tell him that I'm kind of harder, I think, on Christian apologists than I am on Mormon apologists. and one day I'm going to address some of the criticisms directed at me by the Mormon apologists. And also I told him, I said, listen, I said, I sometimes have a tendency to lump people into groups. And I said, I don't find that you're responsible at all for stuff that Robert Boylan said and did about me. And he made it clear that, Robert's not a member of the organization. And he felt that, that a lot of my concerns about Robert, he could understand where I was coming from. So I thought that was really good. Because where Cultural Hall says, where that he called because you're having Carrie on. Well, actually, it was they specifically called Cultural Hall to ask me to change the title of a video with Jonathan Neville, because I had Fair Mormon in the title, and it really didn't mesh actually very well with the episode. And so I just said, okay, changed it right now, texted him, let him know. And then next thing you know, I'm talking to him. And I can say that's more than I can say for a lot of these Christian apologists who I've reached out to, who in one case, I've been spending years trying to do a Zoom call with one. And finally, he's starting to come around and let me talk to him. But just the cold shoulder, and then just even trying to meet with them and actually meeting with them and offering my assistance. And next thing you know, they attack me the next day for attending a Bicker Tonight baptism was just uncalled for. And I felt, and then they did this hit piece on me, which is not even, I don't take it seriously. I've sent it to other evangelicals and they all say this is a joke. So it's just not good scholarship on their part. And again, that's why I wanted to offer to help them, because I wanted to help them do better scholarship. Okay, I'm going to start talking in a couple minutes. I just want to give people a few updates. I've talked to Pynakker, who is a former Fair Mormon apologist who recently converted to Catholicism. And he's going to be interviewed by Jacob Hansen, but then after that, he's going to come on my program. Yesterday, I interviewed Taylor Petrie, who wrote the book Querying Kinship in the Mormon Cosmos. And then tomorrow, I'll be taping an interview with Carrie Schertz with Jonathan Neville as my special co-host, an oral history of Fair Mormon, what happened in the early days, and what was it like starting the organization, but also why did he leave? What was it that caused him to leave the organization? So I think it should be a really interesting conversation. Cultural Hall, you're the only one. Okay, just so everybody knows, in the chat, if you want to talk to me right now, please do. Also, if you want to give a donation to the channel and get a shout out from me, this would be a great time to do it as well. Cultural Hall says, Stephen, do you have any future plans of having Austin Fife on to talk about his book? Yes, as a matter of fact, I reached out to Austin a couple of weeks ago, said, hey, I want to get you to come and actually kind of even respond to the series that RFM is doing with Colby Reddish. And I haven't heard back from him. So I'm kind of waiting to hear back from Austin. He sent me a copy of his book. He told me he wanted to come on my program, but I haven't heard back from Austin. And so I would like to hear from him. So Andrew SD says, hey now, Steve. Hey, how's it going, Andrew? So we got a nice little crew of people in here, and then we're doing this an hour early. It's but I kind of, well, first of all, I want to let everybody know that there's a winter festival going on at my church, at my Christian community here, and thousands of people show up for that. And then I invited one of my friends to take his grandson to this event. And now I might meet them there, but they're telling me to hold on because the grandson, he's very autistic, like he's way on the spectrum. And so there's sometimes issues, but I told them, yeah, they're going to have, because they actually got a snowbank so people can go sledding, everything like that. So that's what we got going on. So that's why I came in early so I could participate in that. But also I wanted to kind of get this story out there. Okay. So I've been in a few minutes. Let me tell you what's going on. And again, I have anonymous sources, and I'm not going to review any anonymous sources. As a matter of fact, my other sources don't know who the other sources are. Okay. But I want to let Ted says, hello, Steve. Thanks for your channel. Thanks for hopping on, Ted. A few months ago, I was talking to somebody who's a faculty member at Brigham Young University. And basically, this person told me, said, Steve, there's basically a purge going on at the school of anyone that's progressive, any faculty that's progressive, or any faculty that's viewed as LGBTQ friendly. And he says it's gotten worse over the course of the last year. So I checked with other sources and they confirmed this with me. So I've talked to other sources, both in and out of the campus, people who are in the know, that are part of the faculty or people who know the situation. And I'm hearing the same thing from multiple sources, some of whom have spoken to Peggy Fletcher Stack about this. Cultural Hall gave $1.99. Thanks for answering my questions. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Cultural Hall. Peggy Fletcher Stack has talked to some of my sources, but not all of them. And from my understanding, Peggy spoke with 30 sources at BYU in the faculty, none of which will give their names. And from my understanding, she said, but from what my sources are telling me, she has said that she's never seen this before in covering a story, that nobody wants to come out. And this is the exact same experience that I've been having too, that nobody will go public about this because they're afraid of retribution and losing their jobs. And these are tenured professors, okay? And so that's what's going on. A lot of the faculty feel like there is this purge going on. And I'll just read a couple quotes from somebody. And I found out in the last 24 hours that this was happening with Peggy. And so I wanted to kind of tell you some of the results of my research, because I know people are going to be talking about this weekend. But basically, the person told me earlier, said, never seen anything like this. Everybody's afraid to speak. It's almost impossible now to find eligible candidates for hire. Well, that's interesting. and in all levels of the and this is at all levels of the hiring process. So let me tell you a few things that's going on. And I also want to give you a context, because this is the exact same thing that happened in the evangelical world in the 70s and 80s, when basically the fundamentalists and the conservatives of like the Southern Baptist Church and the evangelical churches decided to purge all progressives out of their religious institutions. And that's exactly what happened. And they're doing the same thing. So this is what's going on. Anybody that's not tenured, that's perceived as being progressive or LGBTQ friendly, are not having their contracts renewed. In the hiring process, if you wrote a paper or done anything that has anything to do with like gender studies or LGBTQ stuff, that's an immediate knock. No, they don't even get in the door. Like they can't even interview them. I also have cases in which faculty have recommended candidates and they get vetoed with no answer. And I asked, well, what's the pattern here? Well, the pattern is every time it's LGBTQ and progressive people that are done. So now they're doing this. And so for anybody that's non-tenured, if you're viewed as LGBTQ friendly, or if you're viewed as progressive, you will not. Their contracts are not being renewed. The other thing that's happening is those who have tenure. Well, let me explain to you what happened in the evangelical world, because again, this is the playbook. Right now, people that have tenure are safe, but if they follow the same playbook that they did in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s, this is what happened in the evangelical world. They would take tenured professors and they would put them in jobs that they did not like. For instance, maybe doing freshman orientation. And that basically it forced them to just leave because they were not doing what they wanted to do. By the way, I'm wearing a BYU Cougs t-shirt while we're doing this. Okay, so now this is the thing. And I'm glad you gave me this quote, Thyatis. Woke, this is how you see it now. Woke ideology does not have a place within the church. There are saved two churches only. The one is the Church of the Lamb of God, and the other is the Church of the Devil. That is not to say, okay, I'll continue their thought. So there are many people who are conservative oriented and orthodox in their faith that actually probably are happy that this kind of stuff is happening. So I just want to let you know that there are many evangelicals that were very pleased that these things happen too. So I want to acknowledge this. I'm not here just to state one side. Yeah, so Andrew says, hey, I was a student at BYU. These stories come and go. In general, I found a lot more tolerance for diverse opinions. There were limits, though, as I'm sure there are now. I will tell you, though, that everybody I'm talking to at BYU said they've never seen it like this before. This is unprecedented. It started 4 years ago, but over the course of the last year, it's really, really been exacerbated. Okay, so that's why I'm told that there are some departments where that half of the faculty are looking for employment at other places. So now you have a limited amount of candidates that they can interview because they have to pass certain tests of whether they're orthodox or not. They're going to have people who are non-tenured are not having their contracts renewed, and now you also have in some departments you have faculty in which half of them are looking for jobs elsewhere. This is happening in all departments. So I was like, so you're telling me that if somebody works in like the geology department or the sciences, that they're disqualified if they're LGBTQ friendly or progressive? And like, yes. So it's happening not just in areas where you think this might be happening. It's happening across the board. And again, this is what my sources are telling me in all departments in BYU. I'm told that that right now the faculty, they're devastated by what's going on. I was told like this is a story that everybody's talking about, but nobody wants to talk about. That was one of the first things I was told by my source a few months ago. And again, I've been speaking to other sources too. Okay, so Theatus says, I would rather deal with issues of hiring than for politics being pushed by professors, and that's the real issue there. And I will tell you that for those of you who are in favor of this, there are professors who've told me that, yeah, I no longer discuss politics at all in the classroom. I don't even say if that I'm a liberal or anything. I used to say it, but I don't even say that now. So these professors feel like they're being muzzled and they're being watched. And I'm experiencing the same thing, that nobody wants to go public with this story. Now, I want to offer to Peggy Fletcher Stack that I have some sources that she hasn't talked to, and if she wants to continue this story, if she's interested in talking to them, just reach out to me, and I can share some people with you. At least one that I know that you haven't talked to, and there might be another couple, and I'll share them with you if they're interested in talking to you. I had one even tell me like, look, I'm thinking of being going to the Washington Post and doing a whistleblower thing. I mean, that's kind of where they're at. This is the morale of the faculty is very low right now. And I feel bad for them because I love so many people at the BYU and I'm friends with so many people. I also know there's some faculty that are totally on board with this and in favor of this as well. So, and I know that there are conservatives within the church that are definitely will be happy to hear this kind of thing happening too. I just want to let you know that, I've been talking to people. I will continue to talk to people. I've also been given some names of other professors that have since left that maybe they might go public. I mentioned that earlier. But yeah, just to have this conversation and then just to let everybody know, like, okay, there was an individual who was invited to speak at a BYU sponsored thing. I'm not going to give too many details. That was uninvited from giving their presentation because they're LGBTQ. But I want to give you even too many more details about, so people don't. I want to be very protective. But this person was going to give a presentation last month at a school-sponsored event and was uninvited because of their status as they're viewed as being part of the LGBT community. I also know that there have been others that have that were sensed that because they had progressive leanings, and that's also pro-LGBTQ leanings, are being uninvited to give presentations at BYU-sponsored events as well. So this is happening. I'm hearing it from multiple sources. I'm plugged into so many different departments at BYU, and I've reached out to some people I really trust. And I've just promised confidentiality on this whole thing. Also, I just want to kind of give the parallels, of course, what happened. One person said, who's outside of BYU, said, there's a fire sale going on at BYU. For anybody that's conservative or orthodox, there's plenty of job opportunities for you, that your academic credentials are secondary to the fact is, are you orthodox? Are you conservative? And that will put you at the front of the line rather than your credentials. That's how that person described it. And I think that sounds like that's kind of what's happening. And again, this is exactly what happened to evangelical, Southern Baptist and evangelical universities and institutions in the 70s, 80s, and going into the 90s. This also led to the fact is that you had a drop off in the quality of the education because these people were, their qualification was that they were conservative and orthodox and they would tote the party line. This is how it's viewed, and so the qualifications of the people that are teaching the students weren't as these people weren't up to par as the kind of what they had before. And again, these people were purged out of these evangelical institutions in really, like I said they're using the exact same playbook. And I've talked to evangelical academics who've went through this similar thing as well. And so you see an emboldened movement within the part of the conservative movement within, and I know I'm not even going to give names of department heads and of people, what's going on. I don't want to give any names out there. But basically, it's so fascinating to see the parallels between the evangelical movement and the Latter-day Saint movement, and how often what evangelicals were doing 20, 30 years ago, it's like then you see what happening in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in so many different areas, which I find truly fascinating. And if you're not somebody if you're just in those two lanes and you're not, familiar with both groups, you don't realize that there's so many parallels going on. And this will continue. And it looks like, that basically from my understanding, what's going on is basically if you're regarded as pro-LGBTQ or progressive, or I'm assuming also LGBTQ yourself, that basically do not apply at BYU because they won't give you the time of day. That's what I'm being told. If you also aren't tenured, don't expect to have your contract renewed. If you are tenured, expect that maybe there will be no more chance for promotion. You'll be stuck where you're at. And then maybe they'll have you teaching classes that you don't care for, that are not part of what you are there for. And so there's just a lot of this stuff is going to happen. And again, because the school is a private institution, it's a religious institution. This is perfectly legal. Now, the question that I was like, well, what happens when they have the medical school? Are you going to discriminate against these people in the medical school? And one person said, being part of the Big 12 and having the medical school might be a positive, because it could be a moderating force on this whole thing. Again, don't forget to give thumbs up on this video so it gets in front of more people. And also, thanks again, Cultural Hall, for the donation. If you'd like to make a donation, this would be the time. So basically, this person said, well, it could be a moderating influence that when you have, like, are you gonna deny like top-notch medical students because they're LGBTQ or they're progressive from practice, going to the medical school? But also, with this stuff that they're doing, once it becomes public, will the Big 12 conference find this to be acceptable for an institution in their conference? Now, I have to say, the Big 12 right now is been weakened, and because they had a lot of major defections. And I think that they would have right now, I don't know if they're strong enough to be able to actually do anything about BYU. But as the conference gets stronger, maybe they will. I don't know. But I know BYU is an important institution there. But I know there will probably be pressures from the other schools in the Big 12 for them to make adjustments here. Okay, so and again, it's really important to hear from all different voices here. So Thiadus, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce your name. We send our kids to BYU for an LDS-friendly environment, mostly to avoid the downfall that is falling to other universities. It's a religious institution. It should stay within that realm. And then you lead up with that with saying, we don't need the world's acceptance. And again, that's a position that people take. And that's what I would expect a conservative to do. Now, growing up as a kid, I remember a lot of my family was in the Christian Reformed Church, and they'd be complaining, oh, those liberals at Calvin College. It's called Calvin College at the time. And then I heard the same lament from people here, just from regular folks saying, oh, those liberals at BYU Provo in particular, and like I think the saying goes, the BYU Provo is the church's university, and BYU Idaho's the Lord's university. That's kind of it's the joke that I've been hearing. And I just want to say that, wherever you stand on this whole thing, these are real people, and this is affecting their livelihoods and their ability to do their jobs. And so I think we should be sensitive to people. Also, I understand why people would say, hey, well, this is a church school. I don't want my kid coming here and be exposed to ideas that could cause them to lose their faith. I get that impulse that parents would have, but I also think in the world of the internet, I think that's probably more doing that now than any scholarly institutions are. And so I just kind of, but I just feel bad for, these are my friends, and I hate to see this happening. I hate the fact that they feel like they can't do their jobs to the full ability, that they can't speak openly for fair retribution, and that could affect their jobs. I also know that I'm hearing from many people that are looking for employment elsewhere. And I'm hearing this from other people saying, yes, it's happening in all the departments. There's looks like you're going to have a wave of people that are going to be leaving the school. You're going to have them anybody that applies for a job there is going to be looked at very closely. And basically, if you wrote something or took some classes or anything that could be viewed as maybe subversive to the church, I don't know if that's the term they would use, or that would be contrary to the teachings of the church, basically you're put on a list that you can't be talked to. And again, many times, even people that are, supported by the faculty to come on board, they're just given no reason. They just didn't qualify, except, of course, that this seems to be the pattern. It's an unwritten rule, of course. The pattern seems that they won't hire anybody that's progressive LGBTQ. So that narrows the candidates that can come to the school. So you're going to have faculty leave, narrowing of the candidates, and then you're going to have replacing people with maybe don't have as good of credentials, academic credentials, as the ones that they're replacing. What does happen to the medical school? Will they implement these same policies at the medical school? What will this do with the Big 12? Will they take a microscope to what these policies are and these unwritten rules, if you will, in some way? I also am aware that the university is aware that the faculty are not happy about this. They have evidence. They know this to be the case as well. So I just want to just let people know that, like I said, Peggy Fletcher Stack was working on the same story for the last few months, and the Salt Lake Tribune will be, I'm assuming this Sunday or maybe tomorrow, will be releasing the story. It's a very complex story. It's a very sensitive subject, but you have basically 30 people that have spoken to her and are not willing, are afraid to give their names. And so they're basically, I'm hearing a lot of the same stories that Peggy's been hearing, and I'm aware that that's coming out. So I just wanted to kind of let people know that I've been working on the story as well. Check out the article. I'm looking forward to reading the article. I know Peggy is viewed as being very fair and balanced in her reporting. And so I think that it will probably be a well-written story that a lot of people will think is fair. I'm going to see, to be fair, there is UVU and not 5 miles away from BYU, and it's super LGBTQ friendly. There is room for both here in Utah for sure. And then he said he went there. The king says hello. Andrew says it's a shame because the liberal professors show kids how to have more progressive views while maintaining their membership beliefs in the church. They show that Mormonism is not single-minded. The king says, as a tithe payer, I think it is important for BYU to hire candidates with the highest merit, but also the honor the church's values. Okay. Cultural Hall says, to the conservatives it is. Dan Vogel says, even when I was a believer, I tried to talk my friends out of going to BYU. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Dan. The king says, Cultural Hall, when are you debating Jacob? And so, yeah, so Cultural Hall's in here. Yeah, so that's the thing. What we have this situation where this institution has decided to go a more conservative Orthodox direction. Are they wanting to emulate Bob Jones University and Liberty University? Well, I have to say, Liberty University has a model. It's one of the largest universities in the country if you count all their online students. They've built a pretty impressive endowment, and it's an up and coming school, and it's big with homeschoolers and people who go to Christian schools. I think that I just wonder, even is the university maybe going in a more Orthodox direction to maybe appeal to other conservatives in other churches as well? Is their medical school maybe going to try to recruit people from foreign countries that are maybe not too terribly LGBTQ friendly? Maybe it'll be more international students that in many cases come from countries where LGBTQ people are harassed or it's illegal. Is that the pool they're trying to draw from? It just makes you kind of think out loud, like what is their strategy here? What does that look like? Jordan Tanner says, Dan Vogel, as a believer, I have major hesitancy about sending my kids to BYU. Yeah, and I know there's actually people that want to send their kids to universities that are outside of even outside of the Mormon corridor, and want them to learn about the world outside of Zion, and maybe that's so they want their kids to be exposed to these ideas. But there's other parents who are like, fine, you can do that, but I don't want our church's school to be a place that could undermine the faith in our church. That's how a conservative would see it. They view that progressive ideas and progressive theology and politics in their mind does harm to their children, and they don't want them exposed to it. Again, in today's world, everything's available on the internet, so I don't know if that's really as big of a deal now as it once was. Yep, and the king says, I'm conservative, but I want to point out that there are many temple recommend worthy liberals. The problem is when anyone conservative or liberal endorse things contrary to the church. Yeah, and again, this is the other thing too. And I've had this conversation before. Up until 2020, basically most of your schism was on the left, more on the progressive wing. But once, and again, I'm not taking a position here. I'm being descriptive, not prescriptive here. But this is a story I've been hearing over and over and over again. And that was this. Once this church, President Nelson endorsed the vaccine and recommended that members get it, a lot of conservatives started questioning the brethren at that point. And for that, a lot of them, their shelves got heavy. And what's happened is we have seen people on the right now in the church leaving the church or questioning it. And it's here on the ward level. I'm telling you, I'm friends with people in the local ward. They have the same concerns. And so, and there's many prominent ex-Mormons that people would be very surprised about, that one of the reasons that was the first thing that caused their shelf to get heavy was the vaccine mandate as they viewed it back in 2020. So this opened a can of worms, because for the first time in their lives, you have conservative Orthodox Latter-day Saints questioning the brethren, which is unheard of. And once that happened, it fundamentally changed the church. COVID changed everything. But that vaccine thing really caused a lot of people to start questioning the brethren. Again, just being descriptive, not prescriptive. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And again, I hear this all the time. And I bounce this off to a lot of different people, and they agree with me. Yes, I know somebody that left the church because of the vaccines. And these are conservatives and liberals that are telling me this. Let's see here. The king asks, do you think it is okay for the church to hire anyone who expresses sentiments contrary to the church? Well, the king, let me tell you, I don't tell any churches what to do because I'm not a member of that church. I'm just reporting the story. I think that I just want to share this, just confirm that what Peggy Fletcher Stack is going to be reporting, releasing this weekend on the Salt Lake Tribune. I've been talking to the same people over the last couple of months. I wasn't aware until 24 hours ago that she also was working the story. And so I just wanted to let people know that this is the information that I have found out. I want to report to everybody that this is definitely happening. This is unprecedented. Like I said, never seen anything like this. People are afraid to speak. That's a direct quote that I got from one of my sources. This is what the faculty feel like. I also know that there are faculty that are in favor of this. They would agree that basically only people that basically are conservative and orthodox in their politics and religion should be the only ones that should be allowed to be teaching their children. So, okay, well, I find this conversation to be really interesting. I imagine, again, most of the time people watch, actually all the time, this gets a heck of a lot more views after I go live. And plus I've done it an hour earlier than usual, but had a nice group of people here, a nice chat. I'm glad people were able to join us. Again, I'll be interviewing Carrie Schertz, the backyard professor, tomorrow about an oral history of Fair Mormon. Had a great conversation with the president of Fair Mormon today. Again, we're here to build bridges and get people to talk to. I also want to reach out to any faculty at BYU that want to reach out to me and tell me their stories, and also any ex-faculty that want to come on to tell about their story. Again, this is something that's been going on for 4 years, but over the course of the last year, it's gotten very much more aggressive in their enforcement of this unwritten rule, if you will, that basically, if you're LGBTQ and if you're progressive, don't come to BYU because there's not a place for you, is how the perception is expressed to me by these faculty. Let's see. The king says, I just want to point out my loyalty is to the church. White Rabbit says, I look forward to sending my children to a conservative school. There are very few in the nation. Jordan Tanner says, yeah, okay, blah, blah. Okay, this is a conversation. Yet again, this is the thing. There is a movement of conservative colleges in America. You have Grove City College, you got Hillsdale College, you've got Liberty, you've got Bob Jones, you've got a lot of different institutions you got different institutions that are doing college differently. I just wonder if BYU has decided to, don't take a side in the cultural wars. Is that fair to say? In one sense, I guess they are. Or are they just basically saying, listen, we're reaffirming the traditional doctrines of this church, and that in order for you to be a faculty member in this church-owned private institution, there are some basic standards in which we believe that you have to follow. And that is, you need to have a conservative, orthodox, traditional view of marriage. And you need to basically have a conservative view in both, I guess, theology as well as in politics. And that seems to be the position that's going on. Okay, but Polly Dunn says BYU has always been very controlling. Nothing new. I discourage all my active LDS grandkids from going there. Again, Polly, I don't know if you jumped in, but again, this is different. This is something very different than in the past. I'm fully aware of the history of people and stuff in the school, but this and sometimes where they've had crackdowns on people that were dissenters or viewed as progressives, but this one is different, and I think this does reflect a rightward shift in the church. I think that it's made a decision to go that direction. I think partly because, so many of your conservative Orthodox people are the tithe givers, are the temple workers, are the most active people in the branch. And if they start losing those people, then they're in a lot of trouble. So the church is in a very, very difficult position, to say the least. But I want to just tell everybody, anybody who wants to reach out to me, you can email me at mormonbookreviews@gmail.com. I do have links in the description as well for those who want to financially support the channel. I hope this spurns a conversation. I'm looking forward to Peggy Fletcher Stack's article about this in the Salt Lake Tribune. Again, I probably would have released something about this a couple months ago, but again, every circumstances prevented me from doing that. But I just wanted to share again, faculty morale is very low at BYU. There are many who do not feel that that's not a safe space for them to even speak out. And so they've all 100% of all the sources that Peggy has and I have decided to be anonymous here. Not a single faculty member wants to put their name on these quotes because they're concerned about retribution and losing their jobs, or that or they'll be stuck where they're at and there's no promotions, or they'll be assigned into spaces and places that they don't want to be, therefore causing them to seek employment elsewhere. Like I said, I used Purge in the title. That was how it was described to me. It's very reminiscent of what happened in the evangelical and Southern Baptist churches, even also with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod had a similar thing. A purge happened in their seminaries. And so this is nothing new. The Southern Baptist Convention purged all their seminaries in the 70s and 80s of anybody that was progressive, and basically had a conservative takeover. Again, just telling you the history here, and it's just how similar it parallels what we saw in my world. What's exactly the same thing is happening in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Let me check my phone because my friend I'm seeing, thanks very much, but okay. Nope, okay, I won't be going to the Winterfest with the kid today, so that's fine. The granddad, the kid can't make it. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure the Musket speech was really good and blown out of proportion. And then Cultural Hall says even Helen knows he messed up with that link. Let's see. It's Harley. It's good conversations for violence. Good evening and Merry Christmas. I'm surprised to hear this. Bruce Nelson, spare me. 8 out of 10 university professors in the U.S. are progressive. Charles says that. And then Exmo Silver says, boo by BYU. Why you be like that? And then Theatus says they will find work elsewhere. And yeah, so we're having a great dialogue here between people who have maybe since left the church and others who are still members of the church. And we're having a civil dialogue in the chat. So I want to encourage people. I typically go live at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, just about every Friday night. And of course, we've broken many stories here at MBR, including the breaking of the story of the selling of the Kirtland Temple. And I did a lot of live streams about that. So if this story continues to break and I have new information and new sources and new quotes that people want to share, I will put it out there. I also want to, maybe I'll even give a reaction to the Peggy Fletcher Stack article, which from my understanding may be released as early as tomorrow. For the Sunday, I knew it wouldn't be released today because Friday is when you release stories that you want to die. So I figured it's going to be released either probably tomorrow late afternoon or on Sunday. And that story will detail some of the people that I've talked to. I'm sure there's a lot of, what's so interesting is how similar everybody's story is. And it's happening across the board. It's happening in all the departments. And there's a real sense that they might lose a lot of faculty and that they're going to have limited pools that they can hire from, and that they're going to make it difficult for tenured professors who they perceive as being progressive or LGBTQ friendly. Okay, so the King and Cultural Hall are having a good conversation with each other. Bruce Nelson says the message of the Book of Mormon and the Restoration is that you are loved. Surely that is what the church needs to be teaching. I agree. I think, and that's really at the heart of Christianity, is that Jesus loves us, and that he died for us in order that we might have eternal life. And so that's the ultimate sacrifice. Stephen, so much of your speculative narrative is disingenuous. Well, thank you for sharing that, Charles. This is not speculative narrative. First of all, I'm basing it on the parallels that we've seen happening in the evangelical world. We're seeing the same playbook. I have evangelicals who told me, so they're doing exactly the same thing. So this is not speculative. This is based on that already has happened in the evangelical world. We're seeing the same playbook being used here at BYU. And also, these are not speculative. These are speculative quotes. These are quotes and things that people have told me that I of course won't share publicly who these people are or anything like that. Their anonymity is really important. I for getting background, I went and talked to a handful of people. I'm not going to even give, I couldn't tell you exactly off the top of my head how many people I've talked to, but and I've reached out to a few, and I haven't heard from some, but I've been able to talk to some and felt like, okay, I can at least tell part of this story to make people aware of what's going on. Yeah. The king says, I might have missed this, but did you have any thoughts on the Book of Mormon app introduction? I think it's really interesting that they changed the introduction to the Book of Mormon. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more changes like that. That's what I think about it. So I don't think it's, I think, Theatus, who's a member, says, I don't think he has I think he has real sources for this. So I don't think it's speculative per se. Yeah, I'm basing this on what people have been telling you. The king asks, do you believe that the Book of Mormon is the book Joseph Smith claimed it was? I'm sure you covered this before, but I missed it. Bruce Nelson says, for those that are hurting, Graceland University could be an option. Yeah, Bruce, I have to tell you, I've heard some stuff about Graceland too that I'll probably be talking about at some point too. There's some stuff going on there, and I'm really saddened by it. I'm really saddened by what's happening to the community of Christ in general. I have many friends, and they're still in the grieving process, and I'm afraid that this grieving process in the community of Christ is going to continue as more and more things that they were accustomed to having in their church will no longer be. But yeah, there's Graceland University, which is the official, I call it the BYU of the Community of Christ. I'd like to get out to their campus sometime. And yeah, so again, I'm just letting people know that I've been talking to some of the same people that Peggy Fletcher Stack at the Salt Lake Tribune has been talking to. I just want to confirm that, basically I've heard many similar stories that she's heard. I'm sure that she's an excellent journalist, so I'm sure that she has uncovered a lot more than I have. And she's talked to more people than I have, that's for sure. I have not talked to 30 people, but the fact that she talked to 30 people, and it seems like we're hearing similar stories based on the fact that I'm talking to some of the same people that she's talking to. It leads to believe that this is something that I can verify based through my sources and also through Peggy Fletcher Stack in her forthcoming article that will be in the Salt Lake Tribune is indicating the same story, that there is what I don't know if Peggy calls it a purge, but one of my sources calls it a purge that is going to affect non-tenured. It's going to affect people who want to apply, do not apply. If you are perceived, if you are progressive or LGBTQ friendly, if you are a professor with these same views, don't expect any promotions, and maybe it might be pushed out to find jobs elsewhere. And then, of course, BYU traditionally pays lower than most, than many universities that are similar. So that's also could cause for them to have trouble finding qualified faculty as well. So there's just a lot going here. The king asks, has Graceland and BYU had a football game? Well, just so you know that, what was his name? The famous decathlon from the 70s who transitioned to woman, formerly known as Bruce Jenner. Bruce Jenner was one of the most famous graduates of Graceland University, and the campus sporting facility is named after Bruce Jenner. I think and Bruce even formally said that they could keep the name and the Bruce Jenner name on the institution and the building, and I guess they changed it to her new name, which escapes me at the moment. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, I'm not even hardcore, but let's see. Oh, Dan Vogel says BYU is survival of the unfittest. Wow, that's strong. And then, yeah, but so, well, what an interesting conversation. What a great chat we're having today. I just want to say that, I did have a great conversation with Elder Neil Anderson last month at the Tallahassee Temple. It's the second conversation we had. And then Elder Anderson told me, said, I really appreciate your channel and the interfaith work that it's doing. And so to hear that from a member of the Quorum of the 12 was truly an honor and a blessing. This is not an anti-Mormon channel. Never has been, never will be. I will not use news or Mormon history I will not weaponize it to try to hurt the church. I just want to report the facts. So faithful members, if I'm giving a news story, I do not have an agenda, and I'm not trying to use the news to, hurt the church. I'm just there to report it. I have many sources that are very reliable that have told me and have confirmed many of the things that Peggy Fletcher Stack will be detailing more so in this weekend's Salt Lake Tribune. From my understanding, it will be released sometime this weekend. That's what one of my sources is saying. And that's speculative also a little bit on my part, because I thought they know that it's coming out soon, and I knew they wouldn't release it on Friday. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, sometimes I can see it being released as early as tomorrow or maybe Sunday morning. But my money is it'll probably be released sometime tomorrow, and I look forward to continue to report on this story. I want to encourage anybody who wants to reach out to me and tell me their story. If you haven't talked with me yet, or if you haven't talked with Peggy yet, but you have something that you want to add to this conversation, if there are those of you who want to defend what's going on, who are faculty, I want to hear that as well. Like I said, I talked to everybody. I talked to the president of Fair Mormon today for the first time on the phone, had a very good conversation with him. And then on Sunday, or December 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I will be going on Radio Free Mormon's Christmas Eve Cavalcade of Stars, Christmas Spectacular. It's not called that. That's what I'm calling it. And actually, interestingly enough, I'll be first at bat. And also Quaku's going to be participating in that. So and I like it. The holidays get us together. We get all these different people talking to each other. And again, I'm just reporting this story. Oh, FLDS Music Archive says, I'm late. What's going on? Again, I'm early. You're not late. I typically do this at 8, and I apologize, but I wanted to get out in front of this story. Plus, I have a winter festival. I'm still going to probably stick my head in and then meet a friend out for dinner. But FLDS Music Archive. And again, this will summarize because I know people are constantly jumping in here, and we got quite a lively chat. The Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints runs the institution that is Brigham Young University. It is a church school. It's a private university, and they have basically every right to hire and fire whoever they want. And basically, they've determined that over the course of the last year, that basically, if you are viewed as progressive or LGBTQ friendly, you will not receive tenure. Your contract will not be renewed. You will not be hired. So anybody who is a person who wants to apply, if they see that you have written a paper maybe about gender studies or anything to do with LGBTQ stuff, or have posted progressive stuff, that do not apply. This is what my sources are telling me. And then if you're a professor that also shares these same views, that does have tenure, you might have reached a dead end in at the school, and maybe get assigned to places and spaces that you don't care for. And that's one way. And again, why am I saying this? This is the playbook that was done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s to basically do a purge of all progressives in both Southern Baptists and Lutheran Church Missouri Synod and many evangelical institutions. They had a lot of progressive professors back then. They purged them all out. It's the same process that's happening apparently at BYU. Also, if somebody BYU wants to reach out to me in the PR department or wants to kind of clarify anything that I may have said that been in error, I also will make any corrections, that if I've said something that is not correct, and it's pointed out to me, and I think if it's something that feels that it warrants that, I will definitely make any corrections as well. Again, I want to have a positive conversation here about what is academic freedom in the context of a private university that's religious. This is the same debate that happened in our world, and that was, okay, do we want these religious institutions to be affirming of the traditions and values and teachings of our church, or do we want these to be institutions that also allows for there maybe to be challenges to that? Now, there are some people who say, listen, if you're a progressive and you don't believe in the teachings of our church and all that, then why would you want to be teaching at our church or at the church-run school? Wouldn't you be better suited? Wouldn't it be a better fit? Somebody even told me, he said, listen, in one sense, it's like a conservative trying to apply to get tenure at a Ivy League school. Just isn't going to happen. So again, this is not just one way. There are very few conservatives that have any places or spaces in many universities. So maybe the church is saying, well, this will be a place for those conservatives will have that space here at BYU, where a lot of conservatives don't feel like there's a space for them in many of the academic institutions. So maybe that's the position they're taking. I'm really interested in hearing and seeing all this. I feel like I'm an anthropologist sometimes studying and trying to say, okay, I've seen this before. And then I've talked to other evangelical scholars who've told me, like, yeah, it's exactly the same. It's uncanny how they're doing the same thing that happened in the past in my movement as well. Somebody asked about my thoughts on the Book of Mormon. Actually, I've done a few things on the Book of Mormon. I have both a naturalistic explanation for the Book of Mormon, but I also have more of a faithful view of it. I think I can look through it from a lens of both as a skeptic, not a materialist, and also look at through the lens of a believer. And if you're a believer who believes that the Bible's inspired, you can't ignore the Book of Mormon. You do so at your own peril. I also hope to one day maybe address some of my evangelical critics out there, because I do feel like they could do better. I wish they would do better. I even offered to help them, but instead they chose to attack me and do a hit piece on me. One day I'll talk about that too. I do want to thank Gordon from or Scott Gordon. Yeah, Scott Gordon for the great conversation I had with him today. He's the president of Fair Mormon. I'm looking forward to I've invited him to come on the program, and he said he definitely would be interested in doing it down the road. So again, another bridge building. Because honestly, I didn't think that if I went to a Fair Mormon conference, I would be made to be felt welcome, because I feel like I've kind of rumpled a few feathers in that group, as you all know, with the whole Robert Boylan ordeal, and then his cronies and people surrounding that. A lot of them are tied in with Fair Mormon. But I also want to say that I've heard from other Fair Mormon people throughout the years who've emailed me and told me they enjoyed the programs or particular interviews I do. So I guess I have more friends at Fair Mormon than I realized, and that's really cool. All right, the King's got to go, and actually I think that we'll leave it at that too. So remember, we do have, first of all, if you want to make a donation, this would be great, whether it's in the super chat or in the in the comments or in the show notes. There's links in there. And so you want to help us. We couldn't do it without you, because again, this is tough. It's been a tough time. I am hopefully going to be able to get out to Mesa, Arizona next January for a conference of the Western States Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ. Josh Gailey invited me to come out to that, and I think I'm ready to travel. I haven't traveled at all this year because of my hearing loss and all the issues I'm having with my ears and how it affects me when I fly. But I've been cleared to fly, and so I think I'm going to be able to do it. I want to thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers directed towards me and my health condition, and also, more importantly, towards my mom. We love you very much. To hear from people throughout the world, it is greatly, truly an honor and pleasure. I want to thank everybody for hopping on. I came on an hour early, but we had a nice turnout tonight. And this has probably been one of my longer streams, because I think it's really an important story that's just basically now people are just becoming aware of it. Like somebody told me, it's like, this is something that everybody's talking about, but nobody wants to talk about it. No, now we're going to start talking about it. Now this story is a public story because of the work that I've been doing on this for the last few months, as well as the work that Peggy Fletcher Stack, Salt Lake Tribune, is on. And Peggy, if you want to reach out to me, I can probably help you with this as well. And also, Peggy, if you want to come on my program to talk about this story, I find it to be a very interesting story. And I think the readers of the Salt Lake Tribune will think the same. Okay. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm really enjoying just life in general. I feel like I'm doing better. I hope you all have a great weekend. We're entering into the holiday seasons. It's kind of a downtime for podcasters. A lot of people are doing vacations, and I always have a drop off in both July and December. So this, as we get closer to the holidays, it gets more and more hectic. So I want to just pray for a safe holiday season, that you're able to get together with family and friends and have a blessed time as we come together to celebrate the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. That's the reason for the season. And for those of you who are not believers, I just hope that you have a happy holiday season as well. And okay, Charles Nuckholes says, I am proud to have served as professor and department chair at BYU, and to have served as the chair of the Wasatch Socialist Party. Well, yeah. See? Yeah, Charles. See, I think we need a lot of diversity. My goodness, Steve, I'm going to touch base about next week. Okay, Cultural Hall. Yeah, we might be doing a live stream as well. Okay, folks, I want to hear in the comments. What do you think? Do you support this? Do you think it's a good idea to basically make BYU a more conservative, traditional-minded university, kind of like Grove City, Hillsdale, Bob Jones, Liberty, and others? Or do you feel that this is not a good thing, that you want that in order for BYU to be acknowledged as a world-class institution, that it has to have diversity? And what do you think the Big 12 is going to do? Will they maybe reconsider their partnership with the Big 12? And what about the med school? What does this look like? Like, will there be a litmus test for these things at the med school as well? Josephine says, BYU staff have authority separate from the church leaders when it comes to hiring and firing. I wonder if those professors had been reported to be vocal liberally in class before by students. Well, I will tell you, there are professors who tell me now they won't disclose their politics anymore to their students. All good on the speculation issue, not what I meant. The issue is about discrimination. All rainbows has same civil rights. We love all, however, we have a right to stop civilization destroying ideology. I'm a little confused, Charles, in what you're saying there. As you're just typing really fast before I wrap this up. Okay, well, tell me what you think. I want to hear what people have to say. The chat was very, very active tonight. We had a really good turnout of people watching tonight. And I want to hear from people who watched this after, because 90% of my audience watches the live streams afterwards. And of course, a lot of you are probably realizing now that it's not at 8 o'clock Eastern, it's at 7 o'clock Eastern. And so I'm going to be wrapping up now. Just remember this. The most important thing is this. All the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.